I know it's not officially official, but don't worry, Mizzou fans. Williams Nwaneri is not going anywhere. Unless, well, there is one scenario, and I'll tell you what it is. Right now, I'm Locked On Mizzou.
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso and the central scrutinizer of Missouri Tigers football and basketball. And thanks for making Locked On Mizzou your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts, including on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today on the program, well, I got to talk a little bit more about Williams Nwaneri at the top and just all kinds of Missouri football news and opinions to get to. But I'll tell you this, it's been funny to watch online ever since Williams Nwaneri, of course, one of the absolute top players in the country from high school, committed to Missouri on Monday. Well, a lot of Oklahoma fans and even some Tennessee fans I've noticed too are coping with this reality by telling themselves correctly, by the way, that, well, until the actual signature is on the paper, until the ink is dried on his actual national letter of intent, then technically he can still go wherever he wants. This is very true, but as I've said before, considering that I do believe Nwaneri will be getting some money, there's going to be, starting on August 28th, of course, Governor Mike Parsons just signed that law, at least ceremonially, yesterday, as did Missouri guard Sean East, by the way, got to sign on behalf of the student athletes. I thought that was kind of cool. They gave the senior basketball player that particular honor. But regardless, here's the thing with Nwaneri. I just don't really see any scenario whatsoever where he flips from Missouri, especially considering Nwaneri himself said that he is 100% or 1,000%, whatever he said he's not flipping. Well, there is one scenario where I could see it, and that's that Missouri is so bad this season on the field in 2023. Maybe they go 4-8 to the point where Eli Drinkwitz loses his job. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't see that coming. In fact, I think Missouri is inside the top 25 right now. For my personal preseason anyway, I don't think it's crazy to put them at the very least on the border of being a top 25 team because, frankly, Missouri was kind of there last season in some areas. Now, obviously, the 6-6, yeah, that's not going to cut it. I'm not saying that Missouri should have been voted into the poll. My point is Missouri, it's been said over and over again, just a few plays here and there from having a true breakthrough season under Drinkwitz. Now with the defense largely coming back, I believe the offense should be improved, at least at the very least, a lot of opportunities for growth there. I truly think that the odds of Drinkwitz actually losing his job after the season are extremely low. I'd say 10% or less. So that means that the odds of Missouri losing out on Williams Nwaneri are about the same. That's just my opinion. And speaking of Williams Nwaneri, well, I mentioned on Monday's program that a couple months ago, maybe even a month ago, I would have told you that I just didn't think there was much of a shot for Missouri to get this young man. So what changed? Well, obviously, I think the Missouri name, image, and likeness law played a big factor here, especially at least getting Nwaneri to listen to the Tigers more seriously. And then maybe on top of that, other factors were able to secure that young man as well. But sort of along the same line here, I said a couple weeks ago that Dre Kirkpatrick Jr., who's from Gadsden City, Alabama, also the son of a Crimson Tide legacy. Of course, his father, Dre Kirkpatrick Sr. I just figured once he finally got that Alabama offer, well, he was probably going to be headed to the Crimson Tide. I don't think I was alone there in expressing that opinion whatsoever. But, well, things change. As I said with Nwaneri, things seem to be changing really quickly with Dre Kirkpatrick Jr. the cornerback, 6 foot tall, 186. We've been talking a lot about future casts over at rivals.com. Well, just on the 15th, just yesterday, we had 3 riders, Russell Johnson, Brandon Howard, and Power Mizzou's own Gabe DeArmond, all flipped their future casts from Alabama to Missouri. So we'll find out in a couple days here when Dre Kirkpatrick announces his commitment. That's the plan as of today anyway. Obviously, now things are pointing toward that way. Just another example of all the momentum in the world right now being on Missouri's side for certainly one obvious reason, but some more reasons as well. And as long as Missouri can keep up the momentum, at least reasonably so, on the football field, they don't have to play for the SEC title or anything, but certainly a winning season at the very least would go a long way to keeping all of this going. And coming up, we Missouri fans are all painfully aware of how important the quarterback position is. And as of right now, clearly I can't pick a winner. Eli Drinkwitz hasn't done it, so I'm not going to either. And really, a couple weeks ago, I think maybe some fans may have mistaken what I said, I should say, about Jake Garcia. Well, you know what? I can't completely dismiss that young man's chances of starting just yet, but maybe not for the reasons you think. So let's talk about that. But first, I want to tell you about our newest sponsor, Nutrafol. And you don't have to choose between hair growth and your health, because Nutrafol provides a whole body health approach for men that promotes healthier hair. No drugs, no compromises, just better hair. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement, clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. I tell you, I can't wait to get started with this product. They just sent me a free sample in the mail on Tuesday. Hey, my hair's looking pretty good, but like most guys who have snuck into their 40s, got a little bit of degradation around the hairline. I want to just keep what I've got. That's my main goal. So take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair for a limited time. Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Find out why, over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men, spelled Nutrafol.com/men, and enter promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Thanks for making Locked On Mizzou your first listen every day. Apologies for not getting a show out yesterday. It just couldn't be avoided. The day got away from me. What can I say? But you know what? We are available now on the SiriusXM app, where you can check out the Royals and the Cardinals as well tonight on the app. The Cardinals take on the A's, also on channel 179. The Royals at home against the Seattle Mariners on the app, and also on channel 177. But we got to talk more about the quarterback position, right? I have a feeling we're going to continue to talk about it throughout the preseason here, and probably deep into the season as well. Hey, it's one of my favorite topics. I'm not complaining whatsoever. But I will say I want to clear up some things for some people, my personal opinions on this position right now, because, well, apparently there was a little bit of confusion out there. YouTube commenter out there named Doug says, John, are you still stating that Jake Garcia has no shot at the starting quarterback job, and it's basically between Brady Cook and Sam Horn, with Brady the overwhelming leader in the clubhouse? When Kirby Moore decides to go with the elite arm talent at quarterback, Jake Garcia, instead of a more mediocre from Brady Cook, when we play Kansas State, your assertion that Jake is not even being considered isn't going to travel well. Wow. Shots fired there from Doug Burkhardt. My goodness. My takes aren't going to travel well. Well, we're not traveling. Number one, sir, that game is at home. So, already beat you on a technicality. But in all seriousness, though, I promise you, I never said that Jake Garcia had no shot. On the other hand, I did think that, gosh, it's probably not very likely. I just feel like I still stand by the fact that Garcia had a shot to win the job, basically going away, or at least put himself in the lead as the leader in the clubhouse, if you will. But it just never happened. By all accounts, during the spring, some even said that Dylan Liable, who is a community college transfer, was actually the more impressive quarterback during the spring. So I don't know. Your confidence that Jake Garcia is going to start in week 3 is not shared by me, Mr. Burkhart. But on the other hand, I can't be completely dismissive of it either. I can't say that he's not going to start. I really have no idea. Now, I will say, though, that the people who are basing all of their analysis on Jake Garcia seem to be doing it so off of some practice footage where he's throwing against air, and maybe there's a defensive back there occasionally. There certainly isn't any pass coverage. He's certainly wearing the green "Don't Touch Me, Bro" jerseys that the quarterbacks wear this time of year. So the point here is I don't know how you actually assess anything that's going on at Mizzou football practice right now. People who say, I've seen it said about Garcia and Sam Horn, they're going, boy, that ball just comes out of his hand different. Again, I'm not arguing with you on arm strength or arm talent, whatever you want to say. Clearly, Sam Horn and Jake Garcia have a more impressive arm than Brady Cook. But from what I've seen, especially if Cook is going to be 100% healthy with that right shoulder this year, arm talent is not really Cook's problem. In fact, I don't think arm talent is really the question here at all when it comes to the quarterback position. If it was all about arm strength, then guess what? Ryan Leaf would be a Hall of Famer. Jamarcus Russell would be a Hall of Famer in the NFL. And yet, all those guys taken number 1, taken number 2 overall, they never had it. It's because they didn't have it up here, quite honestly, between the ears. I'm not even saying they're dumb people. I'm just saying in terms of processing information on the football field, making reads, being able to understand what the defense is doing, and just simple feel for the game, knowing when to throw the ball, knowing when to step up in the pocket, knowing when to take a sack and not throw an interception. There's a lot to the quarterback position, a tremendous amount that has very little to do with your arm talent and everything to do with doing homework and just boring stuff like that most people don't want to do, athletes included. So again, as of today, I'm not really sure what to make of the quarterback battle. If you made me pick a favorite, I suppose I would take Cook by default. But again, that's just based on, hey, he was the starter last season. And I think Drinkwitz tends to lean towards experience. But again, I'm certainly not dismissing Sam Horn, and I'm not dismissing Jake Garcia either. But I'm still going to say today, my order of, if I'm going to say favorites, not saying massive favorites, I'm still going Cook, Horn, and Garcia in that order. Doug Burkhart, hey, if you're right and Garcia takes the ball in week 3, I will tip my hat to you and say, good prediction. You were 100% right and ahead of apparently all of the Missouri beats. So that would be an incredible prediction. But regardless, I wouldn't start celebrating and spiking the football until, Garcia actually shows that he's a good player. And again, if he is, whoever the Missouri quarterback is, I'll be with the conventional wisdom. It's got to be better than it was last season. But regardless of who it is, I'll be rooting for him. That's for sure. Don't act like I'm against Jake Garcia or something. Frankly, I think sometimes we as fans are guilty of assuming that whoever the new guy is, whether it's a quarterback who hasn't seen significant action or it's a transfer from the portal, we tend to assume that, this guy's going to be an upgrade automatically. And to that point, I think a lot of people, when they heard that Cameron Johnson was going to transfer from Houston to Missouri, that, he would automatically come in, take over the starting center job, and all would be right in the world. But it sure sounds like Connor Tollison has made tremendous strides since last season. And of course, Drinkwitz has been all over that particular phenomenon, that particular trend in the preseason, to the point where so far, still in this first string, Connor Tollison working with the ones. And by the way, that's not just a, hey, we're going to give the guy experience thing, we're just going to hide who we're starting thing, anything like that, because Cameron Johnson has moved over to right guard, which actually his more natural position. So really, I think this is actually a positive. Some people are taking this as a bad sign that, oh no, Johnson couldn't beat out Tollison. Well, actually, I think this is a good thing. If Tollison has improved as much as the coaches say he has, that means, again, Johnson can just slide into another position. So at this point, according to yesterday, to Colin McAndrew over at the Columbia Daily Tribune, it's looking like Javon Foster, of course, on the left side with Xavier Delgado next to him, and Connor Tollison, Cameron Johnson, and also Armando Mimbu would probably be your starting right tackle. Now, Mimbu, an enormous young man that had some real high points last season for sure, had some injuries as well. Again, speaking of transfers, well, I think everybody assumed that Marcellus Johnson, the transfer, was going to be taking over that right tackle spot. Again, guy still on the roster right now, and Mimbu actually seems like he is going to take that spot. I think a lot of that may have to do with, well, again, people were assuming Tollison wasn't going to be a starter. Johnson would be there. Maybe Mimbu would be at guard. But again, just find the right five. As I've said all along, your weakest link, that's what's going to tell you about your offensive line. You can have a couple pillars in Javon Foster, maybe Mimbu and whoever, but if you have a weak link, man, it just makes it awful tough out there. So to me, this is all an encouraging sign for the Tiger defense, the Tiger offensive line. It's an encouraging sign for. But you know what? Speaking of encouraging signs, I got some more for you on the injury front. So let's talk about that coming up right after this. So Missouri safety Jalen Carlisle, also known as JC, apparently to his close buddies, has been held out at least of the open part of practice the last couple times that reporters have been able to observe. But according to Drinkwitz, well, good news is if there were a game this week, he'd be fine to be out there. So just precautionary measures there for Carlisle. And even better news than that, according to Drinkwitz, no injuries as of now that I know of. So, wow, that's obviously a great sign. Coming out of camp, not that camp is over just yet, still a couple more weeks to go before Missouri kicks off its first game, but you do have to wonder a little bit, though. And this is not a criticism of Missouri or Drinkwitz in general. This is just the new balance of football, which is, hey, it's great that we don't have any injuries, but at the same time, are we going to be ready for week one? Most importantly, are we going to be ready for week two against Kansas State? In particular, what I worry about in modern day football early in the season is tackling. So if in week one, if Missouri's tackling looks solid, I'd say we've actually found a really good balance between having a ton of contact in camp and actually injury preservation, because that's really the balance we're all trying to find here, right? In 2023, because back in the day, 25 plus years ago, hey, remember Camp Larry? Is that what they called it? I don't remember what it was called, but back in the day, Larry Smith would essentially take his team and sequester them up at the Missouri Military Academy for a week or two and basically have brutally hot 2-a-day practices where I'm sure while they definitely had the quarterbacks in Don't Touch Me Bro jerseys, everything else, just a lot of contact, a lot of physicality. The idea being back in the 90s and even further into the 2000s, certainly, the idea of football practice was basically to torture your team because, hey, we got to make them as tough as possible because those other teams are out there torturing themselves too. So, again, it's probably a good thing that 2-a-days are a thing of the past without question. And to me, even back in 98, Camp Larry sounded like an absolute nightmare to me. I was never that big a fan of conditioning drills, to be honest with you. But I do think there's got to be maybe a little bit more of a balance found here because I just don't think we've quite found the perfect balance here. I applaud that we've taken more injury prevention, certainly concussion prevention measures. And yes, the old saw back in the day that, hey, don't drink water, it'll make you cramp up. I'm glad we've realized that that's one of the stupidest things that people ever believed. No, being hydrated is actually a good thing, ladies and gentlemen. But at the same time, you notice even in the NFL, even at the pro level, man, September football these days is just not the prettiest thing I've ever seen, especially on the defensive side of the ball, where tackling is just not where it should be at that point in the season. I do think there's been a little something lost there from the Missouri Military Academy, the Camp Larry days. But hey, hopefully nothing has been lost and a lot has been gained here today on the podcast. I certainly appreciate you listening as always, and thanks for making this show your first listen every day. Thanks for telling a friend that we are available on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your shows, and ad-free on Amazon Music as well. So you know what? I'll see you tomorrow right here on Locked On Mizzou.